The superglue oozed between my father's fingers as he pressed the tube toward my face. My lips burned as the industrial adhesive made contact, sealing them together in an instant. Through my nose came desperate, panicked breaths as my 7-year-old son Liam screamed behind me, his voice bouncing off the walls of our cramped living room. "Stop! Grandpa, stop!" My mother sat motionless on the couch, methodically peeling an orange, her face blank as she watched her husband glue her daughter's mouth shut. When he finally released his grip, I collapsed to my knees, unable to make any sound beyond muffled whimpers through my sealed lips. "You shouldn't have provoked him," she said flatly, dropping orange peels into her lap. "He hates loud women." My name is Olivia. I'm 32 and a single mother. This is the story of how I silenced those who tried to silence me. It had started minutes earlier. The house smelled of gasoline and anger as my father paced the living room, beer bottle in hand, muttering about respect and discipline like some twisted prayer. I was washing dishes when I heard it. The crack of his belt followed by my son's choked sob, the kind of sound that tears through your body before your brain can process what's happening. I dropped the glass I was washing and ran to find Liam curled on the floor beside the coffee table, one hand shielding his face, the other clutching his favorite toy truck. My father towered above him, belt dangling from his hand. "What did you do?" I screamed, rushing toward them. He turned slowly, eyes cold and unfazed. "He lied," he said, "and in this house, liars get corrected." "He's 7, I shouted. "He's a child." Dad stepped forward, his breath heavy with alcohol. "And you? You're a disgrace. You should thank me for trying to fix what you clearly failed to raise." I turned to my mother, desperate for any support. "Say something. You're just going to sit there?" She looked up briefly. "You were worse at his age." Something inside me broke then, the kind of break that doesn't heal cleanly, that leaves edges sharp enough to cut. I screamed that he was a monster, that I hated him, that I wished I'd never been his daughter. I screamed until my throat burned, until my voice cracked. He didn't yell back. He just stared, then set the belt on the table and walked toward the garage with terrifying calm. "Stay right there," he ordered. The garage door creaked open, followed by the metallic clatter of tools. My heart pounded as I clutched Liam tighter. "Mom, what is he doing?" She didn't look up. "You shouldn't have screamed at him." "What is he doing?" Finally, she looked at me, eyes as flat and gray as the floor tiles. "If you can't shut her up," she muttered, "seal her like trash." That's when he returned with the industrial glue. The chemical smell hit me so fast it made me dizzy as he grabbed my arm and forced the tube toward my mouth. I tried to push him off, but he was stronger, always stronger. After it was done, my father wiped his hands on a towel. "Now she'll learn," he said. "Some mouths aren't worth opening." Then he simply turned off the living room light, as if nothing had happened. I sat in the dark, the glue hardening against my lips, my son's fingertips digging into my arms so hard I could feel his heartbeat through them. That night, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't scream again, not until it was them who couldn't. The next morning in the bathroom, I stood before the mirror peeling hardened glue from my lips in strips that tore skin and left raw patches. Every movement stung, but I refused to flinch. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing my pain. My voice returned in hoarse whispers, but I didn't speak to either of them. I moved through the house like a ghost, serving breakfast silently, existing without presence. "She's finally learning respect," my mother observed, tapping her spoon against her teacup while my father barely acknowledged me. Liam sat quietly at the table, his eyes darting between us like a child in a war zone, afraid to chew too loudly. When they left for church that Sunday morning, without inviting me, of course, I began my ritual. I photographed everything. The bruises on Liam's shoulder, the split in my lip I'd hidden for years, the glue tube carelessly tossed in the garage corner, the belt, the dented coffee table, the corner where Liam always curled up when he sensed violence brewing. I wasn't building a case for the police. I was building memory. Days passed. I said nothing, responded to no insults. When my father made a cruel joke at dinner about how I looked like I'd been chewing on gravel, I smiled slightly and said, "I'll wear lipstick tomorrow." He looked surprised. My mother looked pleased. "That's better. See, she can be pretty if she shuts up. But that wasn't just lipstick I wore. I started wearing red like armor. Lipstick, scarf, earrings, every day a deeper shade until it looked like war paint. They thought I was recovering. What I was doing was rehearsing. At night, I went to the old storage boxes in the attic and pulled out everything they had tried to erase. My college acceptance letter they never let me use. My baby blanket they said wasn't worth saving. My childhood journals they once threatened to burn. I laid them out on my bed like evidence and remembered who I was before them. I began teaching Liam how to pack efficiently. If we ever need to go somewhere fast, I told him, you grab this bag. He nodded, trusting me without question. He didn't need to know the entire plan. He just needed to know that someday we wouldn't be here anymore. The final trigger came when my son cried quietly in the bathroom after my father had yelled at him for spilling milk, called him weak, said, "Your mother made you soft like her." That night, after tucking Liam into bed and waiting for my parents' bedroom door to close, I crept into the garage. I pulled the old camping cooler from the shelf and opened the false bottom I'd built years ago shortly after my ex-husband left and we had to move back into my parents' house. Inside was my escape kit, emergency cash I'd been saving for 6 months, nearly $800 now, a flip phone with no contacts, Liam's birth certificate, a spare key to the neighbor's shed, and a half-used prepaid card I'd found in my mother's purse after she'd thrown it away. I didn't sleep. I lay beside my son and memorized his breathing pattern, whispering his name like a prayer. The next day, I told my parents I was taking Liam to a library program. My mother waved me off without looking up from her nails. My father muttered, "Make sure he learns something useful for once." They didn't even ask when we'd be back. We walked past the library and kept walking until we reached the bus stop 3 miles away. I didn't cry. I didn't run. I just walked, Liam's small hand in mine as I counted the cash in my head, just enough for 2 one-way tickets and a week at the women's shelter where my old college roommate now worked as a counselor. We boarded a bus at one stoplight with no return ticket. After riding for nearly 4 hours, we arrived in the city as dusk was falling. The city lights made Liam blink from the window like he'd never seen anything so alive. I checked into a shelter under a different name and enrolled Liam in a small school where no one asked who his grandparents were. I got a job cleaning motel rooms during the day, waiting tables at night, while another mother from the shelter watched Liam after school. I said nothing to my parents, no calls, no texts, no address, no photos. They didn't realize we were gone until a neighbor knocked on their door 2 weeks later asking, "Hey, haven't seen your daughter in a while. You guys okay?" My mother called 37 times, leaving voicemails ranging from worried to furious to manipulative. "Come home. Don't make this dramatic." Then, "How dare you humiliate us like this?" Then, "We were trying to help you grow." My father called once. That voicemail was short. "You think you can run from us, ungrateful trash?" I didn't delete it. I saved it. I was waiting because they still had one thing left to lose, and I was about to take it from them. Their reputation. 3 months passed before they found me, not because I was careless, but because they were predictable. My mother could never stand being ignored. She tracked down the shelter's number through a cousin I once trusted, the same cousin who believed every lie they ever told about me. My cousin Sarah had seen me at the downtown grocery store while visiting a friend in the city and reported back to my mother immediately, even giving her the name of the neighborhood where I was spotted. 3 months later, in our small apartment across town from the shelter, it was a Friday afternoon when I saw her name flash across the phone at the front desk. The volunteer looked nervous. "It's someone claiming to be your mother." I took the phone, breathing slowly. "Where are you?" My mother's voice was tight, angry beneath her feigned concern. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "People are talking. Your father's furious." "Good," I said softly. "What?" I said, "Good." She exhaled sharply. "You've embarrassed us. You left without a word. You made us look like we drove you out. You need to come back. We can forget all this." I interrupted her. "He sealed my mouth shut, Mom." Silence. "Do you remember that?" "Because I do. I still taste the chemicals when I try to eat. My son still flinches when he hears your name." Her tone dropped to something almost pleading. You know how your father is. He loses control sometimes, but he still loves you. You're overreacting." I smiled bitterly. "You said that when I was 8, too, when he broke my nose." "That was an accident." "No," I whispered. "I was the accident. You just never had the guts to admit it." I hung up. That night, I sat at the small kitchen table in our new apartment. Just 2 chairs, 1 lamp, and a cracked window letting in the city noise. Liam was asleep in the next room. He had started humming in his sleep lately, like the world had finally stopped feeling dangerous. I looked down at the old flip phone with my father's voicemail still saved. I pressed play. "You think you can run from us? Ungrateful trash." I hit record on my newer phone and played the message again, letting the sound bleed into the speaker until it distorted slightly. Then I uploaded it. Not to social media, not to the world, just to one place. The church group my mother ran online, where she posted photos of family unity and faith and healing. The caption I added was simple: "Even angels have rotten wings when you get close enough." I didn't need to say their names. Everyone in town knew their voices. By morning, her account was gone, deleted. The calls started again, this time frantic, angry, desperate. "What did you do?" my mother screamed in one voicemail. "You're ruining us," my father growled in another. But there was something different this time, something fragile beneath their anger. They were unraveling, and they knew it. I didn't answer, not once. A week later, I received a letter with no return address, but I recognized her handwriting. Inside was a photo. Me at age 5 sitting on the front porch with my father behind me, his hand on my shoulder as he smiled for the camera. I looked terrified. On the back she had written, "Families forgive. You should too." I stared at it for a long time. Then I walked outside, dropped it in the trash can, and lit it with a match. The paper curled, blackened, and collapsed in on itself like the past finally turning to ash. When Liam came home from school that day, he ran into my arms, excited. "Mom, I made a drawing. It's us in our new house." I looked down at his artwork. He had drawn 2 stick figures holding hands under a blue sky. A small note at the bottom read, "No yelling here." Tears blurred my vision as I kissed his forehead. "That's beautiful, baby." That night, after he fell asleep, I stood by the window. Somewhere out there, my parents were probably sitting in their quiet house, the one filled with trophies, framed smiles, and silence sharp enough to cut. They had built their world on control, and now they had nothing left to command. A month later, I heard through my old neighbor that they'd stopped attending church altogether, and my father had taken early retirement, their carefully constructed facade of family perfection finally shattered beyond repair. For the first time, I felt peace. Not revenge, not justice, just peace. I finally filed the divorce papers that had sat unsigned since my husband walked out 3 years ago, formally closing that chapter of my life, too. I whispered into the empty room, barely a breath. "You sealed my mouth once. Now I'm the one who doesn't need to speak." And outside, the city hummed back, soft and steady, as if it already knew. Before you go, here's a quick offer for listeners. If you enjoy powerful stories like this one, you might want to try audiobooks. Check out the exclusive deal in the description. Your first month completely free with access to thousands of titles.